Caitlin Clark did not miss a step after being sidelined for 5 games with a quad injury. Bring it up the court, 27 feet. That's easy money. Again, from 31 feet. It's good. Clark with 9 points in 42 seconds.
Caitlin Clark does not wait for permission. She takes space, she takes time, and when the moment arrives, she takes over. On a summer night in mid-June 2025, a WNBA powerhouse stepped onto the floor unbeaten. 9 wins, 0 losses, total control. The expectation was simple. Another routine win, another quiet night, another reminder of who ran the league. Then 38 seconds changed everything. Caitlin Clark was 23 years old and had just returned after missing time, watching from the sideline while the league moved on without her. No build-up. No warm-up moment. Just a possession near mid-court, nearly 34 feet from the basket, and a decision that stopped everything. She shot. It fell. She shot again. It fell. Then a third time. Same result. 3 shots. 9 points. Less than a minute. The arena shifted. The bench went silent. A team built on certainty suddenly looked unsure. This was not luck and it was not panic. It was the same player who shattered college records, sold out arenas across the country, and turned ordinary WNBA games into must-see television the moment her name hit the schedule. In that stretch, records fell. Fastest scoring burst against an undefeated team. Deepest pressure threes of the season. The first real crack in a dynasty that believed it was untouchable. This was not an upset. It was a rupture. It was the moment inevitability died. The moment fear disappeared. The moment women's basketball crossed into a new era. Caitlin Clark did not celebrate. She turned and ran back on defense, as if this outcome had always been inevitable. And in that quiet pause, everyone understood the message. The future did not ask. It arrived.
Clark, the feet underneath, back Finlay working against your rule. What a move there!
If you think this was just one game, you missed the larger story. This moment had been building quietly, long before the ball ever left her hands. Caitlin Clark had been watching. 5 games in street clothes. 5 nights on the bench, unable to help, forced to study. While her body healed, her mind worked. She watched patterns. She watched tendencies. She watched a team everyone else had already surrendered to. The New York Liberty were not just winning. They were erasing people. 9 games. 9 wins. Most of them decided early. The margins were so wide that analysts stopped reaching for clever descriptions and settled on one word. Dominant. Opponents did not talk about beating them anymore. Coaches talked about limiting damage. Staying close. Leaving with something that still resembled pride. Breanna Stewart was the center of it all. Calm. Ruthless. Efficient. No wasted movement. No emotional swings. She did not overwhelm teams with noise. She wore them down with certainty. Every adjustment met with an answer. Every counter already expected. Sabrina Ionescu ran the offense like she was reading ahead. Passes slipped through angles that should have been closed. Defenses reacted a half-second too late, every time. Jonquil Jones turned the paint into a warning sign. Drives slowed. Shots changed. Players hesitated before even trying. Together, they built something that felt less like a roster and more like a conclusion. A team that made competition feel optional. 9 games in, the question was no longer who could beat them. It was whether anyone could interrupt them. And while the league accepted that idea, Caitlin Clark did not. From the bench, with a quad injury and no voice on the floor, she saw what inevitability really was. Not strength. Not dominance. An illusion. One basketball has a way of exposing when fear replaces belief. She did not need speeches. She did not need promises. She only needed a moment. Because in basketball, inevitability only exists until someone refuses to believe in it.
The double team comes over for BG. She has 5 seconds to work with. In and out.
Empires fall. They always do. History never asks if it will happen, only who delivers the moment that cracks the foundation. While New York dominated headlines and highlight shows, something quieter was forming in Indianapolis. The Indiana Fever were sitting at 4-5. Ordinary on paper. Easy to dismiss. But records do not show context, and they do not show absence. For 5 games, the most important piece was missing. Caitlin Clark was on the bench. Street clothes. A strained quad. No minutes. No shots. Just time. And time, for a player like her, is never wasted. It becomes preparation. She circled June 14th, the moment doctors gave her the diagnosis. Not because it was a return date. Because of who was coming to town. The New York Liberty. Undefeated. untouched, labeled unbeatable. As her body healed, her mind sharpened. She watched every Liberty possession, every rotation, every habit that success had made comfortable. She noticed what winning allowed them to hide. New York defended the three-point line better than anyone in the league. Hard hedges, quick recoveries, hands always present. But their system was built on one assumption, that shots come from normal places. 24 feet, 26 at most. Clark asked a different question. What happens when the threat starts at 31 feet, 34 feet? Distances that break defensive geometry. Places the playbook does not account for. She studied Breanna Stewart's positioning, where she shaded, when she trusted help. She memorized Jonquil Jones's reactions on high screens. One step here. Pause there. She tracked the exact moments when Sabrina Ionescu shifted her focus toward help defense instead of the ball. 5 games of silence became 5 games of planning. Every detail logged. Every tendency stored. By June 14th, Caitlin Clark was not just cleared to play. She was ready. The Liberty prepared using film from her rookie season. Same player. Same range. Same habits. They believed they knew what was coming. They did not realize that version of Caitlin Clark no longer existed. What arrived in Indianapolis was something forged in frustration, sharpened by waiting, and ready to announce itself in a way no scouting report could predict.
She was back today for an enormous run with the previously unbeaten New York Liberty.
38 seconds changed the temperature in the building and the direction of the night. The opening minutes followed the script everyone expected. New York controlled the pace. Crisp ball movement. Tight defense. Indiana struggled to breathe. The scoreboard said Liberty 24, Fever 13. Another long night seemed inevitable. Fans in Gainbridge Fieldhouse settled into quiet respect, watching a powerhouse do what it always does. Then the rhythm broke. Caitlin Clark stepped into a pass several feet behind the center logo, 34 feet from the rim. A distance coaches usually circle in red during film sessions as a mistake. Breanna Stewart was in position. The defense was set. The math said no. Clark ignored the math. One smooth motion. High arc. No rim. Just net. The crowd stirred. Not erupted. Stirred. One shot can be luck. 12 seconds later, she did it again. This time from the right side. 31 feet. Same calm release. Same clean result. The sound of the net snapped sharp, almost defiant. The arena woke up. Players on the Liberty bench leaned forward. Something was off. 16 seconds later, Clark drifted left, crossed once, planted well beyond any normal range, and rose over Stewart's outstretched arm. Another 3. Another perfect drop. 9 points. 3 shots. 38 seconds. An 11-point lead disappeared like it never existed. No runouts. No turnovers. Just shots from places defenses are not built to guard. Breanna Stewart smiled despite herself. A competitor's smile. Respect mixed with disbelief. This was not in the plan. That burst did not just close a gap. It cracked the confidence New York arrived with. The sense of inevitability vanished. The scouting report suddenly felt outdated. The assumptions felt careless. And the young guard who was supposed to be contained no longer looked manageable. She looked unsolvable. What followed was not a return to normal. It was momentum turning into pressure. Pressure turning into doubt. And doubt spreading faster than any defense could adjust. The game had changed. And everyone in the building knew it.
Clark went bananas. First quarter and won. But then Trevor, in the span of 38 seconds...
Clark did not fade the way hot shooters usually do. She intensified. Each possession looked calmer. Each decision sharper. By halftime, she had 25 points, the most she had ever scored in a single half at any level. The undefeated Liberty, a team built on discipline, structure, and defense, looked unsettled. Not rattled. Unsettled. A subtle but dangerous difference. New York tried to adjust. They pushed their defenders higher up the floor, farther from the basket than they were trained to go. That open driving lanes, and Clark sliced through them with precise passes to wide-open teammates. They switched defenders, hoping different bodies might slow her down. Clark immediately hunted the weakest matchups and attacked without hesitation. They turned up the physical pressure, leaning into her, bumping her off routes. It did not matter. 5 games spent watching from the bench had sharpened her footwork and timing. She anticipated contact before it arrived. Nothing worked because this was not a coaching failure. It was a spatial problem. Caitlin Clark had stretched the court beyond its normal limits. When a player is a real threat from 34 feet, the geometry of defense collapses. Step out 3 feet farther and seems open everywhere else. Stay home and shots fly over your head from distances defenses are not designed to contest. There is no correct adjustment when the range itself breaks the structure of the game. By the final horn, Clark had posted 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists, along with a career-high 7 three-pointers. A stat line the league had never seen before. She became the fastest active player to reach 850 career points. She recorded one of the most efficient high-creation games in WNBA history, combining scoring and assists at a pace usually reserved for all-time greats deep into their careers. Achievements that once took legends a decade were arriving for her before her second season was complete. And this was not against a rebuilding team. This was against the best team in the league. Undefeated, fully healthy, prepared. Or so they believed. The records would dominate headlines. Analysts would debate rankings and comparisons. But beneath the numbers, something more important was happening. This was not just a great performance. It was a warning. The league was not watching potential anymore. It was watching inevitability form in real time.
It was all CC after this. From 33 feet, you know it's good. She's heating up.
Something shifted that night and the rest of the league felt it immediately. From that moment forward, the Indiana Fever were no longer treated as a curiosity built around one star. They became a problem that required full attention. And moments like that never happen because of one player alone. Historic wins demand structure. They demand teammates who recognize the opening and run straight through it. On June 14th, Caitlin Clark set the tone, but the Fever followed with discipline and purpose. No one shrank. No one spectated. Every player understood the moment and leaned into it. Lexi Hull embodied that shift. She did not simply benefit from Clark's gravity. She punished New York for every inch of space it surrendered. Hull delivered the best all-around performance of her professional career, setting career highs across the board. Points, rebounds, assists, efficiency. She knocked down threes with calm precision, finishing the night as the most accurate three-point shooter in the league, a fact that defensive schemes could no longer ignore. While New York scrambled to contain Clark's range, Hull made them pay for every late rotation and every split-second hesitation. Her movement without the ball was sharp. Her timing was exact. She turned defensive chaos into controlled offense, proving that the Fever were no longer a one-option team. That balance changed everything. Clark stretched the floor beyond reason. Hull and the rest of the roster filled the space with purpose. What looked like an upset on the scoreboard was actually a blueprint. A warning that Indiana had evolved from a rebuilding team into a coordinated threat. And the league understood it instantly.
Big moments, just what did it mean to be able to stay composed when the Sun were kind of charging back at the end, especially against a team with confidence?
And against New York, the effect was magnified. Every pass Boston made forced the Liberty to make impossible decisions. Help one player and another punished you. Collapse on Clark, and Hull drained yet another corner three. Step out to contest the perimeter, and Boston delivered pinpoint entry passes that split the defense before they even knew what hit them. This was more than individual brilliance. The Fever had become a network of threats, each player amplifying the others. Defensive schemes that had worked for years against other teams fell apart instantly. Every rotation created openings elsewhere. Every attempt to contain one star unlocked another. By the end of the first half, the Fever weren't just competing, they were orchestrating a lesson in spatial awareness and timing. Clark's range dictated the defense. Hull's accuracy punished hesitation. Boston's vision exploited mistakes. And every minute reinforced one simple truth. Indiana was no longer a team to follow, they were a team that commanded respect.
We are underway from Indianapolis. Odyssey.
Every run the Liberty attempted was met with resistance. Mitchell's mid-range pull-ups and drives to the basket stopped momentum in its tracks. She punctuated every critical possession with poise, forcing New York to adjust on the fly. Every defensive rotation that hesitated, every second of overcommitment, translated into points for the Fever. Clark, Hull, Boston, and Mitchell were no longer individual stars. They were a synchronized force. Each read, each cut, each shot worked in concert. The Liberty's usual strategies, switching, hedging, doubling, crumbled under the coordinated chaos. By the third quarter, the undefeated juggernaut no longer felt untouchable. Every possession sent a message. The Fever had transformed from challengers into orchestrators, and they were redefining what it meant to dominate a game.
Mitchell.
Start to go to like a one-on-one competition. I might put my money on Kelsey Mitchell. I mean, she is just ridiculous.
Every time New York tried to seize control, Mitchell struck back like a surgeon. Timing, accuracy, and instinct combined to erase their runs before they fully formed. Nalissa Smith became a force on the glass, 12 points, 9 rebounds, competing against a front line that had bullied every other team all season. She treated every rebound as if it were a personal mission, denying the Liberty any second-chance opportunities. Meanwhile, Sydney Carlson came off the bench and brought calm precision. 10 points, 6 assists, she managed the floor with poise, kept possessions crisp, and ensured the Fever never lost momentum when Clark rested. Every piece clicked, every role fulfilled. The supporting cast had transformed from background players into essential architects of the upset.
Caitlin Clark, as she announced she will not be coming back at all this season. She injured that groin back on July 15th and has not played since.
This was not luck. It was culture made visible, a system in motion. Head coach Stephanie White had built a philosophy that turned practice into performance. She calls it drawing strength from one another. Accountability met encouragement. Preparation met opportunity. Every player knew her role and trusted that teammates would execute theirs. Championships are not built on individual talent alone. They are built on collective understanding, where every player peaks together because the infrastructure exists to make it happen. June 14th was more than a game. It was a masterclass, a blueprint for coaches across the league. Indiana didn't beat New York with talent alone. They exploited tactical weaknesses hidden behind the Liberty's perfect record. The first adjustment, screen placement. Instead of the usual three-point line, Indiana's bigs sprinted 5 feet higher, forcing Stewart and Jones to defend far from the paint. That extra space turned Clark's 30-foot attempts from risky shots into comfortable, rhythm-making opportunities. Every detail had been studied, practiced, and executed to perfection.
Extended run from the end of the first quarter, Clark again.
When your screen is set at 28 feet instead of 23, the geometry of help defense collapses. The angles defenders rely on simply don't exist. Indiana's second adjustment was on switching defense. They pre-rotated backside help before New York could create their usual pick-and-roll mismatches. Breanna Stewart rarely faced a smaller defender she could dominate in the post, because the Fever anticipated the switch and neutralized it before it ever happened. On this night, discipline outweighed sheer athleticism. Every tactical choice disrupted the Liberty's rhythm and forced them into uncomfortable, unfamiliar positions.
Start last game, do you get caught up in getting off games to a great start, or how that affects?
Preparation trumped improvisation. The third adjustment was shot selection philosophy. Coach Stephanie White's message before the game was clear. Take singles, not home runs. Move the ball quickly, force defenders to react, and only then make the extra pass to an open shooter. The Fever executed this perfectly, reversing the ball until Liberty defenders overcommit, then punishing every lapse with open three-pointers that fell with devastating consistency. These three tactical adjustments, screen spacing, defensive switching, and disciplined shot selection, combined with Caitlin Clark's extraordinary shooting, turned what looked like another Liberty victory into a masterclass in exposing strategic vulnerability. The most dangerous part for New York? The simplicity. This was not a system requiring superstars at every position. Any team with discipline and capable shooters could replicate it. Indiana didn't just solve a problem for themselves, they sent a blueprint to the rest of the league. 11 other franchises now saw exactly how the Liberty's dominance could be challenged. The myth of invincibility was not just cracked, it was shattered.
Well, back and forth we go. Clark with the three, Johannes answered, then Caitlin again. She's calling for the ball.
And she's only 23 years old, meaning the most dominant version of Caitlin Clark hasn't even arrived yet. It's still being built, game by game, shot by shot, possession by possession. The Liberty will rebound. They're too talented, too disciplined, and too well coached to let a single loss define their season. But they will never again step onto the court against Indiana thinking the outcome is certain. That belief died on June 14th, buried under 3 30-foot bombs and a performance that announced the balance of power in women's basketball had shifted permanently. Other teams are watching that footage right now. They're practicing those high screens, drilling defensive rotations, searching their rosters for anyone who can stretch the floor like Clark. Some teams will fail because they don't have the personnel. Others will succeed. Either way, the blueprint Indiana revealed that night will haunt the Liberty until they either solve it or watch it replicated by every competitor willing to learn from it. The era of inevitability is over. The era of competition is back. And standing at the center of this shift, grinning with equal parts focus and confidence, is a young woman from Iowa who spent 5 games on the bench planning the moment she would make her statement. June 14, 2025, wasn't just a game. It was a declaration. 38 seconds didn't just end an undefeated streak. They changed the geometry of the sport itself. Records will be archived. Footage will be dissected. Stats will be debated. But the moment an entire arena realized the rules had changed will never fit into a box score. This wasn't dominance earned over a season. This was inevitability arriving early. And if one night can redraw the limits of what's possible, imagine what happens when the league adjusts, and she adjusts right back. History didn't close a chapter in Indianapolis. It opened a file. The question now isn't how far Caitlin Clark can shoot. It's how far the entire game will have to follow her next.